Thank you for that very kind introduction. Julie, thanks for the opportunity. Nan, it's good to see you. Financial literacy is a very important thing, and I think you can argue that one of the reasons for the Great Recession is a lack of financial literacy. So it's key that we help our children understand this a little bit better. When I was in high school, I learned how to make a pretty good omelet. Still can make a pretty good omelet, I think. But I didn't even know what a mortgage was when I got out of high school, believe it or not. I don't know. Does that make any sense at all? I'm not really sure. Clearly it didn't, and I think you guys do great work, and very, very important. I really do want to thank Julie, though, for giving me 2 hours to speak. That was really kind of her. I can speak for 3 days or 3 hours or 3 minutes. How about if I go on for about 15, 20 minutes, because I'm between, your lunch is out there somewhere, so it can't take too long. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic about the economy's prospects. Let me just give you a few numbers to make it concrete. GDP, that's the value of all the things that we produce. That's been growing about 2%-ish since the recovery began. Believe it or not, the economic recovery is now almost 5 years old, coming on 5 years of 2%-ish growth. We got 2% last year. This year, starting off a bit on the soft side. I don't know how the weather's been here in Cincinnati, but, oh, it's that bad, huh? Yeah. It's nothing compared to Philadelphia, my hometown. I lost power for 5 days. Fortunately, I have a generator. You want to take a guess how much it cost me to fill that generator up with propane? $3,000. Yeah, 500-gallon tank. I used every bit of the 500 gallons. So it's been a tough start to the year, I think, because of weather. We'll see a pickup in the spring. I expect 3%-ish growth in 2014, 4% growth in 2015, 4% growth. That means more jobs. We created 2.25 million jobs last year. We'll create 2.5 million this and about 3 million next year. And that means lower unemployment. The unemployment rate is 6.7%. Just for context, we hit 10% on the nose back in the wake of the recession in 2009. If you told me we got back to full employment, which is an unemployment rate around 5.5% by late 2016, that kind of sounds about right to me. To be precise, November 4th, 2016. I'm not joking. It's probably 2 p.m. Eastern, too. Okay, well, why the optimism? Let me give you a couple, 3 reasons. And you should soak this in. I don't have a whole lot of time, but soak it in because I'm going to take a little bit of it back. Try to end on a high note. Reason number 1, this is about as close as it gets to arithmetic in economic forecasting, and that is fiscal austerity is fading. So we have been digesting some very significant tax increases and government spending cuts. Remember the sequester? That hit in full force last year. That's been a drag on growth, 2011-12. Last year, the fiscal austerity cut 1.5 percentage points from GDP growth. So we grew 2. If fiscal policy was simply neutral with respect to the economy, we would have grown 3.5%, which most times would be considered pretty good. In fact, that 3.5% is a pretty good estimate of the growth rate in the private economy outside of government. Under current law, if lawmakers, Congress, administration do nothing, and I assure you they will do nothing, not this year, probably not next, the fiscal drag fades to 0.4%. Next year, it's a couple tenths. In 2016, it's 0. So this very, very significant headwind to economic growth, it's fading. It's fading. I'm not arguing that we've solved our fiscal problems. We've got significant problems, longer run, and we're going to have to address them. So we're going to have to take another big crack at this at some point. All I'm arguing is that we've done enough, the minimum amount we needed to do, to stabilize the fiscal situation, get the deficit low enough that the nation's debt to GDP ratio, which is key to fiscal sustainability, stabilizes. At least under reasonable economic assumptions, that's the case. And they're reasonable because they're my economic assumptions. So we haven't solved our problems, certainly not longer run, but we have adequately addressed them, and we can still get my optimistic world outlook for the next couple, 3 years. Reason number 2 for optimism, housing. This is key. The housing market has made a bit of a comeback. Just to give you another set of numbers, we put up 500,000 homes in 2009, single-family, multifamily. If you throw in manufactured housing, it's 550,000 units. Just for context, that's the lowest level of residential construction since prior to World War II. That's how low it got. We're at 900K in 2013, so we went from 500 to 900K in 2013. So that's improvement. You know, we're moving in the right direction. In a typical economy, we should be putting up 1.7 million homes. 1.7 million. That's 1.15 million households. You know, they form every year, and they have to live somewhere. And in fact, you could argue there's going to be a period when we're going to be above 1.15 million. There's a boatload of 20-somethings that couldn't get work. It's been pretty tough for them, and they doubled up with their parents. In fact, if you look at data from the Bureau of Census, there's probably 1.5 million more 20-somethings living with parents today than prior to the recession, and those households will form. I can attest to this personally. Yeah, I have a boy just graduated. Well, he actually graduated last May from Wake Forest University, philosophy major. Yeah, right. He's unemployed. Yeah. We couldn't find work. You know, here we are. What is this? March 2014, right? We're a year in, almost a year in. You know, I'm sure I could have called up a buddy. I could have called up Nan and said, "Hey, Nan, you know, my son needs a job." And Nan says, "Well, I can't really help you, but I know someone who can." But I figured that's not the right thing to do. You know, he had to get his job on his own. This is going to be very important for him long run. I'll have to tell you, my wife has given me a boatload of grief about this. The pressure was intensifying every day. We had good news in the Zandi household a couple of weeks ago. He got a job. That's right. Real estate development, actually. I think it's perfect for him. I won't go into the reasons why. But you're asking, what's the point of the story? The point is, about an hour after he got the job, he's looking for an apartment, right? Yeah. So these households are going to break apart. So we're going to get a boatload of households formed over the next, I'm sorry, I used that word boatload too many times. I will not use it again. I've used it 3 times. I have a penchant for doing that. A lot of households over the next several years. 350K in obsolescence. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes. What kind of plague do you have here in Cincinnati? Tornadoes, yeah. And just normal obsolescence. And then second vacation homes. High-income households are doing fabulously well, no problem. Stock market's up. Many are in their 50s. They're looking for second vacation homes. You add it all up, it's 1.7 million. We're going to go from 900K in construction to 1.7 million. That's a lot of jobs. Every single family home we put up creates 4 jobs over a period of a year. Construction, manufacturing, transportation, trucking, financial services, retailing, Home Depot, Lowe's, home improvement, landscaping, cable hookup, you know, it goes on and on and on. So just do the mental math. This is now financial literacy. So 900K, 1.7 million, multiply by, say, 3, because multifamily doesn't create as many jobs. That's a lot of jobs. It's a lot of jobs. And it's in mostly every community across the country. So this is something that's going to benefit, lift activity everywhere across the country. So housing's key to the economic recovery. I think it's going to continue to improve. It has to, if we're going to get to my 4% growth in 2015. How are you feeling? One more reason for optimism. And as I said, you better soak this in. This is more fundamental. The other two factors I gave, two reasons for optimism, are more, I'd call them cyclical. They provide juice to growth for a period of time, not over the long haul. The fundamental reason for optimism is that we've come a long way to righting the wrongs that got us into the Great Recession. We have delevered, reduced debt. The balance sheet of the private sector is probably as good as I've ever seen it in the data that we have back to World War II. American companies, non-financial American companies, you know, the Krogers of the world, the Procter & Gambles of the world, are very, very competitive.